Right. Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started for the morning, and maybe we'll just let the slideshow run, Tracy, if you don't mind, while I do the introductions, and that way people can kind of continue to see some of the images and get some background for the event. But I want to welcome everybody again. My name is Jasper Collier, and I'm the Oral History Project Manager for Humanities DC, the State Humanities Council for Washington, DC. Thanks again for joining us for this month's edition of the DC Oral History Collaborative Coffee Chat. The Coffee Chat highlights the work of those working to document and preserve Washington stories through oral history. This month, we're discussing the Davis Center Oral History Project that was led by Camilla Thurmon in 2019 to document the story of the center and its founder, Ms. Beatrice Davis-Williams. The Davis Center is a landmark institution in Ward 4. It has instilled a lifelong love of dance, music, and the arts in generations of Washingtonians. Thurman and Ms. Davis-Williams will be joined by project narrator Roger Glass to talk about the stories and narratives the project revealed. Today, we'll screen a film produced by Camilla based on the oral histories she collected. We'll have a moderated conversation, and then we'll leave ample time for questions and comments from the audience. Please feel free throughout the program to use the chat for comments, discussion, anything that you want to say about the program. We look forward to hearing from you. But then when we get to the Q&A portion of the program, use the Q&A box. Those are kind of separated there down at the bottom in Zoom. And that'll help us keep track of what questions we've answered. So I want to say thank you to HDC Programs Coordinator Tracy Mullery for producing this program, and to our live transcriptionist this morning for making the program more accessible. With that being said, you can turn on the subtitles. If you go to the bottom of your screen and either click more, you might see show subtitle. That can bring up the closed captions. You can also click on view full transcript to bring up a box that will have everything that's being said as part of the program. But also just like to note that this program is being recorded this morning. So if you'd like to remain off camera, you don't have to show your screen or anything like, or show your camera or anything like that. Just, be aware that as you're asking questions, the event is being recorded. And if you, would like to kind of remain off of the record, just, don't worry about answering questions or anything like that. But the recording will be available next week following the event on Humanities DC's YouTube channel. So I just want to start briefly by talking a little bit about the DC Oral History Collaborative. It's Washington's citywide oral history project, and a little bit about its role in encouraging and supporting projects like the one you'll hear about this morning. The collaborative began in 2017 as a partnership between Humanities DC, the DC Public Library, and the DC History Center. Its overarching goal is to encourage DC residents and communities to tell their stories through oral history. The collaborative has sought to achieve this by surveying existing collections of DC oral histories, providing free public training opportunities, and by offering grants that are supported by additional training and mentorship. To date, the collaborative has supported over 50 projects across the city that have collected nearly 300 individual interviews. Almost half of these have been added to the People's Archive at the DC Public Library, where they are accessible through the library's catalog of digital resources, Dig DC. And so now I will introduce with some bios our panel for today. First, Mr. Roger Glass. 1975 graduate of Howard University, Roger S. Glass, for 33 years, was employed in the communications department of the American Federation of Teachers, where he served as a writer and editor. He was previously a reporter and entertainment writer for the Washington Afro-American newspaper and the now defunct Washington Star newspaper. Mr. Glass is a former two-term president of the Washington Association of Black Journalists and a founding member of the Washington, D.C. chapter of Concerned Black Men. Mr. Glass became involved with the Davis Center Dance Studio about 30 years ago when his daughters, Sydney and Kelsey, were Davis Center students. About 10 years ago, he became chairman of the board of the Davis Center's nonprofit arm, Arts for Our Children. In that capacity, he has helped the dance studio secure tens of thousands of dollars in grants. This money has been used to, among other things, provide scholarships for Davis Center students, sponsor field trips, and an annual awards program, and fund an after-school program and summer camp. Roger and his wife, Linda, live in Northwest Washington, D.C. Also pleased to introduce The founder of the Davis Center, Miss Beatrice Davis-Williams, a dance artist and dance educator and an artistic director of her dance studio, the Davis Center, who for the past 53 years has used dance as a tool to help hundreds of Washington area youth cultivate an enduring love of the arts while developing values such as a thirst for excellence, self-confidence, perseverance, and team spirit. In 1969, Ms. Davis-Williams founded the Davis Center, a dance school that offers training in a wide variety of classical and contemporary dance forms to students ranging in age from 2 years old to young adulthood. Many of the youth who have attended the Davis Center over the years have done so through generous scholarships personally underwritten by Ms. Davis-Williams. Over the years, Ms. Davis-Williams has taken scores of students to live performances, exhibits, and educational lectures at theaters and museums in and around Washington, New York, and other places, including an educational exploration of Senegal and the Gambia in West Africa. Ms. Davis-Williams has also made a point of teaching her students social graces through etiquette training, wisely recognizing that such skills can greatly assist youth in their career endeavors. Ms. Davis-Williams has served as a member of the dance faculty at Howard University for over a decade, as a commissioner of the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities, and on the board of numerous organizations. Ms. Davis-Williams is an active member of the Theta chapter of Lambda Kappa Mu Sorority, Inc., the Washington, D.C. chapter of the Continental Societies, Inc., the Washington, D.C. alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc., and the Daughters of the King, board member Erica Team I Dance Theater Company, and is a fellow in the prestigious Cicchetti Council of America. In recognition of her extraordinary contributions to Washington, D.C., Ms. Davis-Williams was presented the Living Legend Award by the Pastors Aid Society of Second Baptist Church in Washington, D.C. in 2005, the Greater Washington Urban League's Whitney M. Young Jr. Community Service Award in 2001, and in 2020, the Nola Narinska Award, and numerous other awards around the city. Ms. Davis-Williams received her bachelor's degree from Federal City College. She holds a master's degree in physical education and an advanced certificate in education administration from Howard University, and has earned a substantial number of credits towards a PhD in educational psychology from Howard University. Ms. Davis-Williams resides in Northeast Washington, D.C. And Camilla Thurman. Camilla is an award-winning visual storyteller who is passionate about creating content that captures the hearts of people from all walks of life and encourages viewers to become inspired. Through diverse platforms over the last 15 years, Camilla has contributed to and developed popular television shows on major networks, produced legacy videos for families, developed content for businesses, and crafted several local history preservation films as a DC Oral History Collaborative grant recipient, a Humanities DC Docs grant recipient, and a DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities Fellow. As a television producer with over 10 years experience in unscripted television shows, Camilla has shaped numerous shows from initial concept through production to final locked cuts ready to air. She has worked in various producer capacities for NBC, HGTV, BET, MTV, VH1, Bravo, Lifetime, and Oxygen. In September 2020, Camilla was recognized by the District of Columbia Office of Cable Television, Film, Music, and Entertainment as the Filmmaker of the Month. Thank you all so much for joining us on this panel. And with that, I will turn things over to Camilla.
Thank you, Jasper. I'm honored and excited about this coffee chat. So I'm just going to go ahead and introduce the film that everyone's going to be watching. As Jasper stated, I am a DC Oral History Collaborative recipient. The DC Oral History project that I highlighted was the Davis Center. I highlighted the 50-year history of the Davis Center and how this community-focused center provided dance instruction and arts-related education to Washington, D.C. residents. I conducted 7 interviews, one with the artistic director and founder of the Davis Center, Ms. Beatrice Davis-Williams, board chairman of Art for Our Children, the nonprofit arm of the Davis Center, Mr. Roger Glass, a longstanding Davis Center parent, Miss Marie Mills, a colleague and friend of Miss Beatrice Davis-Williams, former Associate Judge, Mrs. Mary Terrell, and 3 former Davis Center students, Miss Jasmine Fletcher, Miss Imani Bowman, and former DC Councilman Brandon Todd. With these audio interviews, I also intertwined archival materials in addition to filming content at numerous performances and events with the Davis Center. And with that combination, I created a legacy documentary, which we're about to watch. So enjoy.
I had the same for 50 years. Consistency and concentration develops discipline. If you have discipline, you can do anything you want to do. Doesn't matter what it is.
When you find people who are as dedicated and supportive of young people and the community as Miss Davis, you really want to be supportive of them.
Davis Center's impact on me has been positive is too weak of a word.
Miss Davis, to me, is my adoptive mother, my adoptive grandmother, my sister friend.
You know, I was afraid of Miss Davis for a long time, and rightfully so. She's a tough lady.
And I think she makes really strong connections with all of her students, and then also the parents of her students and the families of their students.
The legacy of the Davis Center is going to come from all of those hundreds, thousands of young people and their families who participated in that dance school. They will keep that legacy alive.
I'm using dance as a tool to help them to grow and be, awesome human beings. It's not just recreation. It's not just recreation. Miss Davis got surprise. So we're gonna make you look pretty. Look, you're gonna get a tiara for your head. You're gonna get a wand. Come here, Flo. Gotta get your tiara, girl. You're a princess. You're a princess. She's gonna take care of it. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. So Miss Davis did this because you are special. She wants you to know that you're special. Wait till you see what Miss Davis has for you. Oh my goodness. Oh. I'm so excited, I can't wait. Come here, don't peek. Don't peek. The Davis Center is my life. For 50 years, from September to June, except for holidays, I got up every Saturday and went to work. That's how I was sick. It's my passion. Maybe not the Davis Center, but the children. I look forward to seeing them. I've taught them thousands of kids. I'm teaching the great-grands. And the great-grandmother is still on my team. You know what I mean? The family's still there. I started dancing here in Washington when I was 5. We left when I was 7, and we relocated to the suburbs of Philadelphia. When I got to Philadelphia, my mother enrolled me with Marion Sujet. Marion Sujet and Sidney King, they were the Black dance teachers in Philadelphia. I was serious about dance. I wanted to be a dancer. My father's like, you need to get some education so you can be truly independent, take care of yourself. So I went to Howard. I majored in chemistry. I just continued to dance. I guess I got to about my junior year. My mother paid for me to go take lessons in the city. So I went to the Peters Wright School of Dance. Sheila Peters and Barbara Wright. I studied with them consistently. Barbara got married and left the business. Then Sheila married and she let me run the business. And then I decided, since she wasn't running the business anymore, then maybe I should run my own business. I didn't know what I was doing, but I decided I'd open my own school. I started the Davis Center in 1969. I was excited and thrilled. I mean, I'm having my own business. I got a place. I got a home. My name on the window. I had to drive by the studio, and I kept making U-turns in front of the studio. I had to make sure some people understood who I was, what I was trying to do, and certain behavior wouldn't be tolerated on the block. There was a paint store, so the mothers would come bring their children, and one of the employees would stand out there and hoop and holler at the women, at the mothers. So I said, no, this is not acceptable. The man used to come down and hang out my door. So I said to him, how would you like it if your wife was bringing their daughter to dancing school and some man was hanging at the door? He said, I ain't think about it. I'm sorry. So I found a way to get my message across. There was less respect then than there is now. I don't know that it is much better for women, for Black women, and for the arts. Now let me see what you do. Where the pointy feet?
I think that her method of teaching dance and how she disciplines kids is actually a pretty good balance. I think that it teaches them to be tough, but to be open to learning and to be excited about dance.
Quickly, stay in line.
So even though she may reprimand you or tell you to stop crying or get it together, when she teaches you something and you retain it and you do what you're supposed to do, you get the same level of praise on the other side.
Parents know that I'm not going to allow a lot of foolishness up in me. I'm trying to give them exposure to the arts, some etiquette. They're going to learn discipline. How do you dress when you go out? How you act when you go to the theater? Know the difference between a hip-hop concert and a classical ballet.
What did the little girl do to get her into this world of dreams? What'd she do?
She threw her shoe.
She threw her shoe, yes.
You see that? And what happened when she threw her shoe?
There are African American ballerinas. The stigma is that Black girls don't dance. They don't do ballet. Maybe they were kind of put in a box. And she helped to break that stereotype, by going out, by teaching, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids to go out, by performing, by promoting and educating the community.
Her students that were in her ballet, they could get certain kinds of certificates to reflect that they had been trained. She wanted them to be connected to not just a neighborhood school, but something national and international.
My students are trained to be able to compete with anybody, anywhere. This is why I went with the Chiquetti method. I'm probably the only Black in the world that has gone as far in the method. The Chiquetti method is based on the anatomical structure of the body, because no two bodies are the same. When I'm looking at the children, I have to make an assessment of their body. Some of them got flat feet, some of them got hyperextended legs. I have to do a lot of work to get the body strong enough to be able to execute. And there's a syllabus. It's divided into theory, bar work, center of the floor work, and dance across the floor. The theory part, the children have to be able to translate the terminology from French into English. It's a method that is recognized around the world, and so they can compete. I've had a number of students that go on in the world of dance. A couple of them open their own studios. Several got degrees in dance. One summer, I had 4 to dance at the Kennedy Center all summer with the Stuttgart and the Berlin Ballet. I've had a student to dance with the Royal Ballet. I've had students to dance with Ballet West, the Joffrey at the Kennedy Center, and the Nutcracker.
You can go in any ward and probably find 5 dancers or 5 people that Ms. Davis has touched. Ms. Davis has always tried to give the girls exposure, but also give the community, something nice. One year she was like, I'm gonna do the recital outside. Outside, Miss Davis, really? Yes, and people are gonna stop, they're gonna see the girls, they're gonna do this, and the community loved it, the girls loved it, and then you couldn't tell them that they wasn't on some kind of, big stage somewhere. They right there on the top floors on 3rd Street and out in the street doing this dance and that dance. That's why I said she not only invests in the girls, she invests in the community.
I think one of the things that the Davis Center does a good job of, by taking the students to senior citizen centers, to schools, and to other out venues where they're actually dancing before people who might not otherwise have an opportunity to see ballet and tap and the other dance forms. They develop a sense of giving back, a sense of community service. Arts for Our Children is a nonprofit 501c3. We seek to both foster and encourage dance and the related arts, give it exposure, help young people who might need scholarships to take classes at the Davis Center. But the most important thing, again, that the Arts for Our Children does is to use this 501c3 status to identify funding, mostly by the way of grants, that we've probably gotten almost $200,000 worth of grants over the last 7-8 years. Some kids learn through the performing arts. And we gotta recognize that, particularly as African American and given our roots, that dance and expression and creativity is something that we gotta encourage and nurture just like we do academics. You can look back at your roots in Africa and see how important dance and music and culture was to us as a people. And the dancing that they do through the Davis Center is a continuation of our cultural expression.
When we were in Africa, I did not know who they were for the last concert. They danced. I said, who are these children? I ain't never seen nobody dancing like this before. I mean, they were off the chart. I ain't know who they were. Then I got carried away today. They just floated and I was like, okay. And that'll go with them. That will go with them.
One of the things that I've always valued the Davis Center for is the accessibility that is given, I'm sure, a lot of parents and children who, for one reason or the other, may not have accessible to them dance programs and dance instruction. There are young adults out there now, and some, people 35, 40 and older who have gone through the Davis Center, who continue to make contributions to the DC community. Maybe not anything related to dance, but having been in that kind of environment and having learned discipline and having gotten enrichment and extracurricular activities growing up benefited them in some way, I'm sure. Our council member for the ward that I live in, Brandon Todd, in Ward 4, is a former Davis Center student and very supportive of the Davis Center.
Ms. Davis's organization is celebrating 50 years in Ward 4.
Ms. Davis gave me my first job around 1995, 96. And my job was to sweep in front of the Davis Center every day after school. I also got fired from my first job by Ms. Davis because I didn't show up for work to sweep the front of the Davis Center. And she said, once you make a commitment to do a job, you have to do it. And if you can't do it, you have to let somebody know that. I was quickly rehired without pay, however, at the Davis Center. So that experience taught me, and it's still with me every single day. I'm almost always on time for work, and I never miss a day. It's in large part due to the experience that I had at the Davis Center.
I established a new award this year, and it's called the Tierra Award, and it is presented to our graduating seniors, South Carolina. I presented it to her as well at the Banneker Awards program. And with that award, she gets a $200 book scholarship.
I've never met anyone more committed to the whole student as Miss Davis.
She takes the young ones, 2 and 3, and then for some of them, they stick with her all the way through high school. One thing in working with young people, it's imperative. You have to have continuity of relationships.
Miss Davis definitely influenced me, and she was like crucial in helping me like major in dance and decide to pursue dance as like a career. She was just someone that I thought was so strong and like really good at dance and really good at teaching dance. And I love to dance. I really like learning from her. And then I always hoped that I could be like as influential as her to like inspire like other students to dance the way that she inspired me to dance and pursue dance.
She is a legend. And a legend is somebody who has been able to make a tremendous contribution, but they've been able to sustain it over a historical period of time.
I tell her all the time, I said, Miss Davis, I said, thanks, Miss Davis. Thanks, Miss Davis. And people be like, why are you saying thanks, Miss Davis? I said, y'all don't understand. If your child stays here long, you'll understand it. You'll get it. She's more than a dance teacher. She's more than a business owner.
I really hope that the Davis Center will continue for another 5 decades. Thousands of students, thousands of families' lives have been enriched by Ms. Davis's love and commitment, not only to our city and our award, but to the art of dance and to the enrichment of children.
Well, 50 years is an institution, I think. I've had the stamina, the fortitude, the passion to have done this. It is overwhelming to me. Because when we looked up and said, oh, it's 50 years. Yeah, I made it. But this is not a journey that I've done by myself. All those students and parents and families and friends have been on this journey with me. And so they're important to me. How could I have done it without them? I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I tell parents all the time, thank you for sharing your child with me. And all these children, they make me smile. They make me smile. Make me cry, make me smile. They're my girls. They think I'm crazy, and I probably am, but they know I'm here for them.
Wonderful.
It's an amazing film. Definitely, appreciate, certainly Miss Davis and Mr. Glass and all the rest of the narrators for sharing their stories, but also Camilla for kind of putting it out there in a way that's just so powerful and so beautiful. Definitely appreciate you sharing that with us. I wanted to kind of at this stage, before we get started on the moderated conversation, just give, each of the panelists an opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about the experience of working with the project, or the experience of, kind of working with the Davis Center. It's kind of like just a few minutes to talk as a sort of opening statement about, what the project and what the center has meant to you.
I'll start. I know personally, it's been an adventure. It's been an honor to document a living legend, as Miss Mary Terrell said. And it's opened so many doors, just connecting with Miss Davis and telling her story, and meeting the people that I've met. Miss Davis is extremely grounded in the DC community. And as I stated before, it's just been an honor to document her life and those connected with her. And I'm just super appreciative. So, and I know that it was definitely a labor of love because it took time to do, and I had to go to people's homes and set up equipment. And, you know, if things didn't go well the first round, we may have had to do several interviews. So it was something that it meant a lot to get it right. And so that was one of the things that really meant a lot to me, to ensure that Miss Davis's story was done correctly. So, yeah.
Great, thanks, Camilla.
I'll speak. I want to start out by saying that my parents kept me grounded. Watching the video today is really, I loved it, but my parents kept me grounded. And so I'm just doing the job that I think I'm supposed to do. I love what I do. I try to give them the best that I have so they can have the best and be the best that they can be. So I've gotten a little emotional already this morning. This was an awesome journey with Camilla. You know, we started out and she said she wanted to do my story, and I agreed to do it. But I didn't know she was going to do it to the extent that she did. And the part that you've seen kept people who were local, but she not only went on and interviewed people across the country, which is another portion of the video. It was awesome, and it was an awesome experience. And I thank her, and I thank the Humanities Council for supporting it.
I'll jump in just for a minute or so. First of all, I want to thank you for having me. And it was certainly a pleasure working with Camilla and her team and Miss Davis and others involved with the project. I was particularly impressed by how thorough Camilla was in making sure that the key aspects of the Davis Center history was documented, and that those responsible for that history were included in the final product. As Ms. Davis just said, you know, there's more to this video, some of which we've seen, some additional pieces, some additional interviews that she also videotaped that, you know, hopefully gets shared widely. I previously attended 2 other showings of the video. One was at the Petworth Library, which I believe was the first showing of the video. And then of course it was shown at the 50th anniversary celebration of the Davis Center. And I can tell you both those occasions, it was extremely well received by large crowds. So it's gotten good exposure. And just finally, I want to commend the Humanities DC and its DC Oral History Collaborative for doing, you know, such an important task of preserving, you know, some of DC's most priceless history. We've seen Miss Davis's history, and I know there are others that I know Camilla herself is working on, and I'm sure other creative folks in the city putting together, documenting the history, this important history. I mean, you don't have to be a historian from Washington to recognize the importance and value of documenting these stories. And of course, it's extremely important that Humanities DC is providing the funding and other resources that the creatives need to document this history. So again, I'm glad to be here and thankful for the work of everybody on this panel.
Well, thank you all. I think that, you know, from there, it's kind of a good segue into our questions. You know, the first thing that I, you know, wanted to ask, and I think that we've kind of like heard a little bit about, you know, how things came together, but, you know, I'm wondering if, you know, Camilla in particular, you can talk a little bit more about like the initial motivation for this and how things came together. And, you know, what kind of led you to, you know, this idea of preserving the story of the Davis Center and Miss Davis-Williams.
Well, just like Roger, I had 2 daughters at the Davis Center. And one of the things about the Davis Center, and you probably learned through the film, is that it becomes a family atmosphere, and you're really connected with Miss Davis beyond just taking your daughters to dance class. And so Miss Davis and I had a conversation about her 50th anniversary, and she became familiar with my background, and I wanted to do a anniversary video initially for her. And that would have been tailored under my business on Gen to Gen Media, where I document legacy videos for families and individuals and businesses. And so that's how it initially started. And so through that, Miss Davis told me to just explore grant opportunities. And so I started to just do internet research and started to look for different local grant opportunities that would be tailored to maybe conducting a video or some kind of history video for the Davis Center. And then that's when I discovered the DC Oral History Collaborative Grant. And through that, just went through the process of applying. And so, and luckily was awarded. And so then we were able to do the film. So it really just happened through research. It happened, the timing was good too, because it ended up given me the opportunity to produce what I produced. So that's how it started.
Great. You know, I know that, you know, it's kind of interesting that, you know, the project kind of started out, you know, as this idea for a film for the anniversary, but, you know, the kind of oral history part of it, and perhaps, you know, you had expected kind of that, you know, some interviewing would have to happen, you know, for this film, but like, can you tell me a little bit about, you know, kind of how that experience worked, you know, where you had the idea for the film, but you ultimately ended up doing this film as well as kind of an archival oral history project, and, you know, like how the two kind of things, you know, might have worked together well, or if there were some situations where, you know, it might have been a little bit more challenging to kind of do a film while also trying to, you know, kind of do this oral history according to best practices.
Yeah, so when I would go for each interview, I think I'll start honestly before conducting the interviews, I sat with Ms. Davis and had a clear understanding of her community and who was important to interview and who her list was. And so we went through the list, and then, you know, you have to, the list is longer because a lot of people aren't always comfortable with interviewing or comfortable being sitting down, because these are life history interviews. So they're long and they're detailed, and a lot of people may not have the time and want to make the time. So we kind of started there with the list of potential interviewees. And once that was established, then I communicated with each interviewee on the best time to come to their home and conduct the interviews. And so because we were simultaneously doing the oral history interview and the video, I not only had the audio recorder, but I also had my camera. So I would simultaneously be just recording both. And it was helpful in edit because, you know, you just had backup and you had just 2 forms of audio information when it came down to editing the film. So I did both of them simultaneously. And I don't want to say, I guess it was difficult in the sense of just the equipment. And I know for the Oral History Collaborative, most people and a lot of my cohorts, all they had was their video recorder, which made life a lot easier. So you could just go visit your interviewee, have your recorder, sit it on the table and kind of be done. But because I had this other element attached to it, I came with a lot more equipment. But what ended up happening is when I did the presentation, I decided that it made more sense not to show everyone on camera because this was the oral history collaborative grant. And I felt like, well, maybe it would make more sense just to hear what everyone had to say rather than to see them. And I think it worked. It really resonated. And I think because I was able to film with Miss Davis, you could connect some of their words with what you're saying. So I know, like with one of the parents, Marie Mills, she talks about a previous outdoor performance that the Davis Center did, I think a couple of years ago. But because Miss Davis continues to do that every year, I was able to also record another outdoor performance. So it just all kind of connected, having spending time with her. And if I would drop my girls off to dance class, and I was able to film. So, I mean, I think that ultimately with my background, it made life a little easier to have all the equipment and to do it, but it was pretty tedious. So I think doing those at the same time was a lot, but definitely worth it.
Yeah, and I think that the like the footage that you were able to collect and the images that certainly like some of the older archival images, like all of those things were kind of weaved seamlessly together with the oral histories for a really, really fantastic final product. I think it was very, very seamless and tells a really great story. So I think that was a good decision. I actually want to kind of come back to that at some point, but kind of going off what you were saying about those initial conversations with Miss Davis and developing this list of potential narrators, I actually wanted to ask Miss Davis, how did you kind of come up with that initial list of potential interviewees, potential narrators for the project?
I just thought about all of the people that I have, encountered on my journey. And so I just gave Camilla the names. And as I said, she went all across the country with these people. I'm a member of and I think you mentioned it, I'm a certified teacher in the Academy method, and the home base is in Detroit, Michigan. So I frequent in the summers going to Michigan to dance conferences. And so I have developed friendships with a number of the teachers. And the Academy method is really a worldwide organization. It's recognized around the world. And so, and then people who really have impacted my life and have helped me on my journey.
Great, and I know that you all ultimately how many interviews were done for the project?
7.
I'm sure that the list was much longer than 7.
It was. Honestly, I would have to tell Miss Davis, I can't interview everybody. So no, it was way more people, but it was kind of, I wanted to have range. So there was like a student who had just graduated, so she was younger. Then there was a student from years prior, a colleague, Roger. So it's kind of like I wanted to ensure that we hit different people from different pockets of Miss Davis's life.
Absolutely, yeah. It seems like there's definitely a good kind of mix of students and parents and people who have been involved in the community in different ways. I actually want to turn to Mr. Glass right now and ask about kind of what that kind of felt like to be approached, to be interviewed, and kind of what the experience was of sharing your story. If you have a few thoughts on that.
Well, it was I'll say first of all, it was time consuming. I enjoyed doing it, but as Camilla has just said, she spent a lot of time with this. I know at least with me, and I'm sure with the other 6 people that she interviewed, spent hours, with us individually, documenting, all of this history and asking questions, that I would never even thought about, just to pull out of us as much information and history about the Davis Center as we might possess. So that's why I mentioned earlier, the thoroughness, and also, I enjoyed seeing in the video myself some of the archival images that I, for one, had never seen. And I also, liked the way she meshed, the speaking, the narrative with the images as they were being shown. But it was, I never, I've been interviewed before as a writer and reporter. I'm usually on the other end of the interview. I'm usually the one, asking questions more so than being asked questions. But I do know that, when you interview people, you might interview them for, for an extended period of time, and you have to, edit it down, if you would, both in print as the medium I work in, as well as in the film and video, and pull out, the best of that interview. But I was patient and willing, because as I said, again, as somebody who does interviews myself, I know how important it is to get as much information as possible, even a lot of which you would never end up using. But it was an honor, and it was certainly timely. Everything came together in respect to the 50th anniversary celebration, both the support from the Oral History Collaborative, as well as the involvement of those of us who participated.
Great. Yeah, I definitely think that, it's, certainly helpful that, Camilla has been, so thorough on this project, and, was able to, sit with everybody and really kind of do that pre-interview work and that research. I also imagine it's really helpful, to be kind of part of the same community and to have some of the same experiences of, bringing your kids to the Davis Center and being involved with that parents network. Yeah, I'm sure that definitely kind of, makes the interview process a little bit more smooth. I also wanted to ask kind of a similar question to you, Miss Davis. I know that like over the years, your work on the Davis Center, you've, received numerous accolades and awards, for the work that you've done with young people in DC. Like, how was, kind of the process of doing this oral history project different from those things? Or, was it different to kind of look back in this, really kind of unique way of contributing your life history and trying to remember back, through all those, great stories?
Well, I don't know that I had ever been interviewed like that before, because Camilla actually came to my house and what a makeup artist and the whole bit. So it was exciting. And the whole process helped me to go back and remember a lot of what has gone on my journey. So, it was a great experience, really. And I don't know that I've ever had one like it before or since, really.
Were there any memories that either you shared in your oral history or that like kind of came up and maybe didn't make it onto the recording that, you had kind of like not thought about for a really long time, but, really kind of stood out to you, or, you kind of recognize as having a really big impact on your life?
Well, a lot of memories. But I tell people that, because people have asked me, they said, you need to write a book. I said, but I'm still living the book. And it's hard to remember I've had so many wonderful experiences. Wonderful. I don't think she talked about my travels in dance. I've been to at least 5 of the major continents. And so there's still a lot that's there that we don't know about, or some people know about, but I think she did an awesome job. It's challenging to try to remember.
And what was it like, to kind of, be part of this life history approach? I know that, the kind of focus of the project was really on the Davis Center itself, but, I think Camilla did a really good job of kind of taking everybody back, to their childhood experiences and what it was like growing up. Do you have any kind of thoughts about what it meant to be able to share those things? And, like kind of connections that you might have been able to make between kind of stories from your childhood, how you grew up, your parents, and kind of the, story of developing the Davis Center and, working with young people?
One of the things that I consistently do, and the students today, I tell you that I do this. I talk about how I was raised and the importance of consistency and working toward for excellence all the time. So that's been a major theme, and that's why I teach. I use dance as the tool to teach that, and I believe that if you are consistent and you are working toward excellence all the time, then you will develop the discipline to do anything you want to do in life. So that's my major, I don't know the right word to say, but that's of high importance with me. And I continue to live my life that way. In terms of going through all of this, I mean, it's a path that I travel. And the people that I encounter, and the parents, I think, appreciate the importance of consistency and working toward excellence. Because that's what dance is all about. You keep trying to get it right until you get it right. So I don't know if that answers all your questions, but
I think it does.
I would, if I could just add, Jasper, as I mentioned, my daughters both started at the Davis Center when they were like 4 or 5 years old, and continued straight through high school until graduating from high school. And in fact, my older daughter came back after college to work at the Davis Center as a ballet instructor for 2 or 3 years. And, and the lessons that are imparted, through Miss Davis's classes. I mean, Miss Davis was probably stricter with our kids than my wife and I were. So, and we don't have a problem with that. But the lessons that are imparted, I still see, exhibited in my daughters. One of which is 33, the other is 36. So these are lifelong lessons that are taught through the arts, taught through dance, taught through teamwork. Taught through working in collaboration with other young people and other different personalities. And it, you can see it in the video, how young some of the children are. As I said, my daughters were 4 and 5. But it's different seeing one of the recitals and how all these 4 and 5 year old, even as they're going in different directions on the stage at times, you can see at least the lessons that they're learning and the instructions that have been imparted, even to children that young. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that that's definitely one of the kind of themes that I noticed emerge through the oral histories, was this idea that, the arts and the methods that Miss Davis employs can really be used to teach young people about more than just dancing, but also kind of, these life lessons that are going to be lasting and useful to them in other areas as well. Just like on that kind of tangentially from that topic, are there other kind of topics or themes that you all notice came out of the kind of collection of oral histories overall? I think, it's really interesting that, there's kind of people from different, who plugged into the Davis story, the Davis Center story in different ways. But are there some sort of like overarching themes that you all felt came across through all of the interviews?
I think one of the biggest thing was, first I would have to say everyone was extremely eager to do the interviews. So I felt like it was, if I would have to say one word, it was like community. Like it was huge. Like people really felt like a duty to talk about Miss Davis and what she's meant to them personally and to the DC community. So I think it went beyond, like Roger said, it was just beyond dance. So I think the biggest thing to me was how her center and her personality, I'm sure too, created a home outside of, or in addition to other people's homes. Like this was a home to go to. It wasn't just dance and learning a dance routine. It went beyond that, and a lot of these people felt very connected to Miss Davis beyond just being a dance teacher.
Great. I guess, one of the things that, I kind of want to go back to, with your interview, Mr. Glass, is your kind of deeper involvement, maybe even than like kind of most parents would have been with the Davis Center, and creating the Arts for Our Children nonprofit arm of the Davis Center, and all the work that you did with that, and all the kind of great outcomes, including, the summer camps and the scholarships and things like that. I think that's just a really, great part of the story. And I wonder if you can talk to us a little bit more about those things.
Yeah, first I would say that, the nonprofit Arts for Children is another, actually brainchild of Miss Davis. Going back about 15 years ago, seeing the need, to do more to foster, not just the Davis Center, but the arts in general, and not just dance, and to have another platform or another way to support the efforts, in particular the Davis Center. So one of the, and as has been mentioned earlier, one of the ways in which Arts for Our Children, and I've been the chairman of the board for just about 10 years now, one of the things that we've been fortunately able to do is to identify funding that has enabled the Davis Center to continue performing live at various places, to offer, bring in professional, or I should say, some of the outside instructors that Ms. Davis knows to teach some of the dance forms, people who are specialists in the various fields. And I'm not gonna say most importantly, but very importantly, to offer an after-school program in the summer camp. The after-school program we do in conjunction with the Whittier Education Campus, which is literally about 2 blocks from the Davis Center here in Northwest DC. And I think about, Ms. Davis knows the exact numbers, but I think about 20 young people from Whittier come to the Davis Center at the end of the school day, at least prior to the pandemic. Some of it is being done virtual now, and to get instruction in dance, and it's free because we've gotten grant funding for it. Same way with the camp, same way with the summer camp. Initially, Ms. Davis has had a summer camp for many years, for about 6 or 7 years. It was done in conjunction with I Think to Collard Greens, a summer camp program created by Kathy English Holt. And the summer camp actually goes beyond dance, particularly that one. It taught young people some of the fundamentals of things like gardening and green cleaning and sewing and knitting, as well as some of the etiquette lessons, and brought in musicians from the outside to work with the young people during the summer camp. And I think that the best part about all this, again, we've been able to make the camp, free or certainly very inexpensive, or maybe there's a registration fee of $50 to $75, but everything else is free to the families. And I got to give a mention to 2 of the major funders, the DC agency, Learn 24, and the DC Commission on Arts and Humanities, have stepped up and provided us with, tens of thousands of dollars in funding to offer the programs, both the after-school program, the summer camp program, and some of the other things that we've been able to do, on behalf of Arts for Our Children, in conjunction with the Davis Center, has been able to do on behalf of, literally hundreds of young people now. And the summer camp, for example, has 40 to 50 young people in it oftentimes. So we're going to continue to identify that funding, hopefully continue to expand, the programming, and so that young people can get access to the arts, which is, really, as I said in the video, I think is as important to their future and their development as their academic training, learning the arts, and exposure to the arts.
One of the things that I like to bring to light also is, in the beginning, when you read my background, and I had a significant number of credits toward a PhD in educational psychology. And in pursuing that degree, I had to take courses in testing. And what I find is that not all tests are validated on the population that they administer the test to. So I try to stress to parents the relationship of dance, art, and music, and anything else we can think of to give children exposure so that they will be more prepared for these tests that they take in school as they move forward in life. And I attempt to, well, let me put it this way. I have 2 students who will be performing with the Miami City Ballet at the Kennedy Center, the Nutcracker at the Kennedy Center next week. And so in preparation for that, I have explained to the parents, it is important that we be there to support these 2 young ladies, and also for the children to see that they could have an opportunity too to participate in something like this. When they're ready, I will take them to the audition. And we're just fortunate that we had 2 selected this year. But in preparation also, what we have done is we had a session, I called it Nutcracker Cultivation, where the children were taught about etiquette at the theater. And then they were taught about the Nutcracker, the storyline. We showed DVD, and we had games and projects for them so they were familiar. And then we're also doing etiquette, like dining etiquette, and I'm having a brunch for the young people. And I have totally lost my mind to make it wonderful for them, including having a red carpet for them to walk on, donated by somebody. So it's just preparing them for whatever's coming so that they will know how to. The only time that I'm not going to really fuss at them if they go crazy is when we go to the stage door to greet our dancers and to acknowledge our dancers. So if they want to clap and holler, whatever, I'm going to let them do that. But when you're in the theater, they're not to put your feet on the chair, you know how to act in the theater. So those kinds of things are important. But I just think all kinds of experiences are important. I have had a very wealthy life of experiences. I had a father who took me everywhere. Even if I didn't want to go, I didn't have a choice. So, because you don't know what language they're going to put on these tests. And like I said before, in ballet, we have slow movement. In piano, you have slow movement called adage. So you have that terminology. And if any of that should happen to come up on these tests, at least they're familiar.
I think that's all really important points. And I think that it's, great that, Ms. Davis, you have kind of the background, the knowledge, the expertise, the built up experience to be able to offer that to the young people and provide them with that really holistic experience. And then at the same time, having this kind of nonprofit element to the Davis Center, makes things so much more accessible, which like combined, the kind of top of the line instruction in dance, the kind of elements of exposing young people to all of these kind of new experiences and then making it really accessible to people. I mean, I feel like all of those things are what really kind of contribute to making the Davis Center, kind of an iconic institution in the city. So I really, appreciate, what you have all shared so far. And I think we'll get back to, some of the other questions, but I know that we at least have, one question from the audience. We can turn to that now and just kind of see if people have any, other questions they want to ask. But I noticed that Karen Spellman has raised her hand first. And Karen, I think I have the ability here to allow you to talk. So you can go ahead and ask your question aloud if it looks like you're able to do that now. I think I just clicked allow to talk to allow you to do that.
Okay. Can I be heard?
Yes.
Oh, great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing the amazing story about the Davis School. And I learned so much about what happened in Georgia and Rittenhouse. My daughters actually went to, I didn't realize that Georgia Avenue was a dance corridor for the Black community, because my two daughters attended a school that was a little further down in the city, which is called the Jones Haywood School. And I can relate to all of the importance of what they learned at the Jones Haywood with what the children learned at Davis. I'm part of the DC Collaborative, Oral History Collaborative, and have been documenting work around the Black Power Chronicles era. And we've taken on quite a bit of oral histories and printed narratives, and we've set up a website to provide these narratives to the community. And I'm in the process now of trying to finish the production on video, on 3 videos that were shot in 2017. And I have no experience like you had, Camilla, in the whole production process. And my question actually goes to the technology of how you put together the video and the resources that you had to call upon to make this excellent video. I was very enchanted by it. I love the way you wove the music and the narrative in with the visuals. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that. Tell us how long it took you to do it, and if you don't mind sharing your budget, what did it cost you to be able to produce such a beautiful video about such a wonderful program?
Thank you so much. So I'll start with the equipment that I do use. I actually got a digital recorder that was recommended by Humanities DC. If you were also a DC Collaborative grantee, I'm sure that you are aware of the digital recorder that they recommend. I also have a HD video camera. It is a Sony HD camera, and I use both of those. And I have an isolated lavalier, which is a mic that you sit here, that's very close to the interviewees, close to their chest so that they can speak into it. So I had both of those items, the digital recorder very close, and then the lavalier that was attached. So I used both as my audio recording. When it came down to editing, I used Adobe Premiere Pro. And then my process was usually to get the interviews ingested into the editing system, and I would watch or listen, or both, I was doing both, to the interview, and I would literally pull selects. So I know Roger was one of the things that he mentioned during one of the screenings, that he loved the different sound ups, is what we call them, that I pulled. But you really just have to sit, and you saying how much time. I mean, that may have taken a day or two, and that's just because you would sit with the interview and you may want to go back and sit with it again because you might want to hear something that you didn't hear before. So I was just literally pulling. And so that was time consuming. And so usually my process is, once I get the tapes, I go through the tapes immediately because I know it's going to be long-winded. And then in regards to music and selecting the items that I selected, like I said, it honestly came together because I continued to film with Miss Davis. I mean, it was a lot of footage I didn't even use. So I think that was the advantage, was having a lot of content, and especially with the interviews, just like Roger said, they were hours. So I will say that it's very time consuming because you're watching and rewatching sometimes your interviews and your content. So it takes a lot of time to do that. In regards to music, there's a lot of resources online. Artlist is one of them that I use, where you can get a subscription, which isn't too expensive, and you can get music that's tailored for video content. So that's the process. And I'm willing to share more information If I don't know if we could put this in the board, but just if you want to email me more information, I can directly email you my email address.
Great. Thank you very much. And just the last question is approximately how long did it take and what was your budget?
Right, you did say that. So I used the budget that was provided to me from Humanities DC for the collaborative. And I think, oh, correct me if I'm wrong, Roger. Jasper, how much was the collaborative grant? Was it $4K? I can't remember now how much was provided.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly, what the funding level was at that time. I know that currently the new projects grants are 7,000.
Okay, it may have been 6 in 2019, and it took me the full year. So you get a year through the grant, and I honored the year. So once it started, the grant process started, I started to interview, and then the goal was to finish within the year period. So a year.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. And so does anyone else have any, questions at this time? You can either raise your hand and we can, take you off of mute. You can put it into the Q&A if you have a question that you'd like to ask. We'll just go ahead and leave that opportunity available and kind of switch over to those. If anybody does have any questions, in the meantime, I kind of wanted to go back to a few more questions for the panel. One of the things that we wanted to ask was kind of about the future, about the future for the project or about the future for the Davis Center. What is kind of coming up next for the Davis Center and its community of parents, students, and supporters?
I love what I do. And I know that I'm a senior citizen, but because of my training, I think I get better every day with my teaching. So I don't know when I'm going to retire. I don't have any plans right now. I just celebrated my 80th birthday, and I come to the studio Monday through Thursday from 3 to 7. I'm here all day on Saturday. I do a lot of work at home, paperwork and like that at home. But I love what I do, and I have a very good understanding of how to do what I do. And it's a joy for me. So the future, I'm going to do everything I can possibly do, even things maybe I haven't done. I would like to take the children back to Africa. I would like for them to have more exposure to the master classes, but because of COVID, it's been challenging. But we're still doing a lot of classes virtually. One of my students and I did a course during the summer. It was a 4-day course. It was like 3 hours a day with the Chickasaw people. So anything and everything that I could possibly do for the young people, I'm open to do, and I'm going to try to raise the funds to do it.
Great. We do have another audience question. David, give me 1 second and I'll, all right, you should be able to talk now, David, and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you. An extraordinary piece of work. I think it was quite terrific in so many ways. I'm sure it's going to introduce a character and an enterprise that most people, I've been here for 40 years, have never been familiar with. The one comment I would make, the one thing that struck me is I would like to have seen how much more, in what ways the community and the environment had changed over the years. It just those aspects, that juxtaposition of the people and the place. By no means a criticism of the work. I think it truly is a special bit of storytelling. But that's just one thing that was occurring to me, and something I was left with.
I can understand that. I actually am working now on another Humanities DC, well, I received another Humanities DC grant through the DC Docs. And Ms. Karen just mentioned Jones Haywood. So this one is documenting DC Ballet Pioneers, specifically within the African American community. So I'm highlighting once again Ms. Beatrice Davis, and along with Ms. Sandra Fortune Green, Ms. Bernice Hammond, Ms. Thurrell Smith, and Doris Jones and Claire Haywood. And one of the things that I'm learning through my research is to show just what took place years prior and the rich history that DC had. And what I'm learning really is what the rich history DC had in the 1930s. Definitely unfamiliar with the contributions made by African Americans around that time. And I do think when I did Miss Davis, is one of the things that I mentioned before was just the fact that one of the themes was community. And I think one of the quotes was continuity of relationships. And I think because that resonated with me in the interview process, I made sure that that was kind of the focus of the piece for Miss Davis. So there were elements within the oral history interviews where we did talk about the history of DC and how that has changed for Ms. Davis and the other interviewees, especially ones that were around the same age group as Ms. Davis. So now I can see the need for that in this piece that I'm working on now. So that was actually a valid point.
I think if I could just add briefly, I think one of the things certainly that appears to be changing, and I can go back again to when my daughter's been in elementary school, 25 years or so ago, is I think there's an increased need for outside organizations like the Davis Center to provide the kind of extracurricular and enrichment activities, particularly in the arts, for our young people. I often participate in, as was mentioned earlier, I've been, worked in the field of education and have been an activist here in DC, where I was PTA president at Whittier Elementary School, PTA president at Banneker High School, and support for the arts or for arts education in our elementary and secondary school. It's not that it's waning, but when there are budget cuts, usually those are the first programs that are cut. The music teacher is cut, or the art teacher is cut. And so I think it's one of the changes, and one of the things we certainly should keep an eye on is making sure that those programs aren't cut in our public schools, but at the same time to make sure that groups like the Davis Center and Arts for Our Children, who are working with the community to provide those arts enrichment programs, get the support that they need.
The arts are the salvation of people. It gives them the opportunity to express themselves and to release tension, and particularly with children and with COVID and having to learn virtually, the arts are very, very important.
I think, those are good points, especially thinking about, kind of the possibilities there for, advocacy for, youth programming and arts. And I'm wondering if you all had, any thoughts about how the oral history collection could kind of support advocacy activities, or how the film could potentially support advocacy activities too. I know that, it's a really excellent piece for telling the story of the Davis Center and for kind of celebrating and memorializing, all the kind of great instruction that's happened over the years. But, I wonder if there is kind of this, other aspect of it where it could be used to kind of, push for more arts education or other kind of opportunities for young people in the city.
I think it would be very beneficial, primarily because how people looked at the arts and how it benefited them and their children.
And Jasper, if I could just jump in, I think you hit on it, when you say that using videos like the Davis Center documentary to show both the historical and current value and significance of the arts is the best kind of advocacy. Anytime you can show, I mean, there are so many young people who are no longer young people in this city who are working in a variety of fields and careers. And I know this, through my daughter's friends who are now, into careers and into their 30s. And these are careers that are often unrelated to the arts themselves, but are you can see the benefits of them having been involved in the arts careers. And one of the things, we try to do, particularly with Arts for Our Children, is not just expose the young people to dance and performing, but also to expose them to the behind the scenes careers and opportunities in the arts, which are often many more, than are on stage. And they could, so they don't have to go on to become ballet dancers or tap dancers or musicians or painters, but to know that there are all these behind the scenes technical jobs and creative jobs that need to be done in order for the arts to be performed and to be staged. And there's training, for you in those areas and careers in those areas as well. So, we see the performers, but we often don't think about what goes on behind the scenes and the needs for the people to produce behind the scenes to make the performances show up, if you would.
Yeah, so the young people are introduced to like a whole new kind of set of industries and fields and careers that they could go into as well. I think that's a really good point. I have a couple more questions that I can ask. I just wanted to kind of put it out there one more time as we're kind of, coming to the end of the program. If there's anybody else, who's listening who wants to ask a question, please feel free to use the raise hand feature or put your question into the Q&A. One of the things I did want to go back to, though, we had talked about it earlier, was, all of the great historic kind of archival images of, everything, that we saw in the film from the history of the Davis Center. Ms. Davis, are those from your personal kind of collections, from your personal archives, or were those kind of collected from narrators across the project?
I think probably a combination of both, but most of it is from my own collection, yes.
And, were those, I know that a lot of times it's like really helpful when, doing oral histories to have some of those, images kind of out and displayed, or, something that you can kind of look at as you're trying to, think back into, memories, things that you had forgotten. Were you all able to kind of like use those images to, kind of spark some thoughts or some memories during the oral history?
Certainly, it was very beneficial to use that. Like I said earlier, I'm so busy moving forward all the time, it's difficult to go back. So it did help, yes.
Yeah, great. And Camilla, kind of what went into like making the selection? I know, I'm sure that you, like how you had, a lot of, additional hours of recording and like a lot of footage that didn't go into the, finished film. Kind of how did you select, what images to use, in some of those archival materials?
I know Ms. Davis actually has a former parent who has acted as her archival historian. So she had a collection too of good black and white photos of Ms. Davis. And I mean, you can sort through and you just see some of the photos and they just speak to you in a different way than others. So I think that was kind of how I just selected, just going through all the photos and just deciding, this one's a good one or this one. I mean, Miss Davis really had a great collection. I mean, the first photo you see, I know, I think she had that up at her 50th anniversary because, just a young Miss Davis showing 3 ballerinas how to dance. I mean, it's just a powerful image. So, yeah, I think the process of selecting was pretty much just going through a collection of maybe 50 odd photos and then just deciding, which photos kind of speak to you in a way than others, speak to you differently in a way than others did. So that's how we selected them.
Yeah. And I mean, it seems like in a lot of cases, they're really illustrative of, what the narrators were saying too, even if they, weren't exactly like, 100% related. No, I think it's great that, you were able to like have so much, footage that you were able to collect, just kind of, being at the Davis Center and being part of the community, but also be able to use all of those historic archival photos too. So, one more question for me, and that's just, if there's anybody else who, happens to be listening to this now or in the future after it's kind of put up on the HDC YouTube channel, who's thinking about doing a similar oral history project, who's thinking about doing an oral history project with kind of a, secondary idea of doing a film as well. Like, do you have any sort of kind of advice or tips or, kind of challenges that you had to overcome that you would want to kind of impart to somebody who is thinking about starting a similar project?
I think the biggest thing is, I think we touched on this earlier, was just doing or deciding on a topic that you're close to. So it's just easier if you are connected to in some way. I mean, it's really hard to try to get people to interview if you're not closely connected to the topic at hand. So I think that's the biggest advice I would get, is to make sure that this is something that you have easy access to. I was able to document Miss Davis so closely because I had to drop my daughters off, and then in addition to that, you start to build relationships with the people that you're interviewing. So, it becomes a little bit more personal and you're able to get that information out. And then that leads into my second point of advice, is to, when you're conducting the interview, I always tell people this is a conversation. And I think that's another thing that just allows your interviewee to relax, and you're able to get just a more transparent interview, because you're not just drilling questions at your interviewee. You have to make it very clear in the beginning that this is a conversation and that you're getting the information from them that is more at ease, because it's long. So you're going to have to sit and talk for a long period of time, and you don't want that interviewee to be stiff. So I would say the first is to make sure that it's a topic that you're close to. And then the second is that once you do start your interview process, to inform your interviewee that this is a conversation.
Those are definitely two really important points. And I think they're kind of related to each other too, making sure that your interviewee is kind of comfortable with you and with the relationship, I think, is something that, can be a real challenge for a lot of people, but it's definitely part of like kind of selecting a project that, already has like some sort of like really close attachment to you, that it's really personal for you as well. I think that we're, pretty close to time here, but I definitely wanted to just kind of give, each of you the opportunity to kind of have a final thought, final word. Is there anything else you kind of want to, say about the project or about the Davis Center before we sign off?
I'll just briefly say, Ms. Davis mentioned that possibly taking a group of her students back to Africa. My oldest daughter was one of the group of students that went with her. Wow, what was that, 20 plus years ago, to Senegal and Gambia. And she must have been probably 14 or 15 at the time. And I think she's now just realizing how important that experience was, and now talks about wanting to go back. I don't think she appreciated it, but not the way she would appreciate it today. So I think anytime we can give young people those kind of opportunities, it's very valuable.
When we went, I asked them how long would they remember their whole experience, and they said forever.
Well, that's great. Thank you all so much for joining me. It's been an honor to be on the program with you. And thank you all, who have attended and asked questions today. It's been a really great conversation. I think that Tracy put in the chat the link to Dig DC and where you can find the oral histories. I definitely would recommend to anybody to go and at least take a look through the transcripts, listen through some of the oral histories. And if anybody is interested in kind of starting a DC or starting an oral history project with their own DC community, please do go to Humanities DC's website. Take a look at some of the opportunities that we have. We'll be announcing our FY22 grants, hopefully sometime in the next few weeks. And those grants are meant to be open and accessible to anybody who wants to tell these stories. So please do take a look at those opportunities if you're interested. But with that, thank you all again and have a great weekend.
Thank you.